Welcome back to the Your Most Interesting Story podcast. I'm Rob, and each episode my co-host Jake and I hear about and dig into the most interesting thing that's happened to someone in their life. These are first-hand, true stories told by the people who experience them. Today's episode tells the tale of a modern-day mutiny that takes place 12,000 feet above sea level. Let's hear Steven's most interesting story.
I was living in San Diego at the time, and I was approximately 25 when I met a group of guys. Very interesting set of guys. We aligned on soccer. We aligned on a good craft beer because that was the craft beer movement in San Diego, and we were really into West Coast IPAs. And one night after several of those, we discussed our interest in hiking. And we started going on lots of hikes in San Diego. We hiked Cowles Mountain, which is really beautiful near San Diego State. We started to do Mount Laguna. We went to San Gorgonio, which is just north of Palm Desert near Fontana. And every one of these hikes ended with another set of IPAs in delicious Southern California. But we wanted a bigger challenge. And we got really excited about trying to hike some 14,000-foot mountains in Colorado.
Peaks that exceed 14,000 feet are also known as 14ers. There are 58 of them in Colorado, well over half of the total amount in the entire United States. This altitude serves as a sort of psychological threshold in mountaineering culture, making these peaks notable targets for adventure-seeking hikers and mountain climbers.
And so we looked for a location, and we picked the range within the Chicago Basin, in southwest Colorado. There was 4 peaks within an hour drive of one another, and our goal in 5 days was to hike all 4 of them, 2 of which you could do in one setting, and the other 2 you had to do in separate settings. So we picked 4 days with one rest day in the middle to accomplish this. So we had approximately 1 year to plan and train for these. At this point, we were 26 years old. We'd been friends for about a year and a half, and it was time to move to the next level. 4 or 5 dudes going on the first trip together. Pretty pumped. This was going to be an epic adventure, and we were all down. We started to hike longer distances and as high peaks as we possibly could in Southern California. We kind of exhausted that list. However, we all played soccer together on the same team, and so we were at our peak, 27, man, peak. It was great. But unfortunately, I tore my ACL playing soccer. Now, I don't have to talk about that too much. I thought I was fit. I thought I was doing great, and I was hot dogging on the field. Hot dogging is when you are playing inconsiderate of yourself and others because you think you're better than everyone else. And I tried to pull a move, and as I pulled that move, this guy slide tackled me from front, not from behind, and my ankle was in a precarious situation. Heard a pop, crawled off the field, and it was time to get an ACL surgery. The plan was about 6 months away. I had the surgery about a month later. And if you know anything about ACL surgeries, you're supposed to be out of commission for roughly 6 to 18 months post-surgery. But we already paid for this, and I was going to do it.
Blind determination. That's a characteristic displayed throughout this story. But before we hear more about the trip, let's review the cast of characters who were on it, as described by Steven. In addition to him, there was a guy Steven knew from high school who was also named Steve, 2 twin brothers, Ryan and Chris, a guy named Brent, who Steven sometimes referred to as Brant, and then there was another Ryan, also known as Other Ryan, Mean Ryan, Dickhead Ryan, or Evil Ryan. Evil Ryan was a latecomer to the group who was added within the last month of planning. He was married to one of Steven's high school friends who'd recently relocated to San Diego. They reconnected, and as Steven put it,
we gathered her dickhead husband into our group. We all flew into Albuquerque, New Mexico, and Other Ryan picked us up from the Albuquerque airport.
I'm sorry, why was Dickhead Ryan in Albuquerque already?
He was just there for work. It worked out that he was able to fly in.
Gotcha.
It was great. He had all these points. We didn't have to worry about paying for the rent-a-car or the hotel we stayed in that night. He was stepping up. It was like, oh my God, this guy that we thought was a jerk was really starting to help us out. And so he picks us up from the Albuquerque airport. We get some beautiful Christmas burritos, the red and green salsa sauce.
As Stephen mentioned, Christmas burritos get their name from the red and green chili sauces that resemble traditional Christmas colors. These sauces are thicker and richer than typical red and green sauces, made with flavorful New Mexico chilies. New Mexico chilies are grown specifically in that region, especially in the Hatch Valley, and they have a distinct flavor profile that's difficult to replicate elsewhere.
We load up on burritos. We head up to Durango, Colorado, where we spend our first evening. About a 4.5-hour drive. We got there, we grab a couple of beers, this time Colorado IPAs, and we get to bed around 3 o'clock. At 8 a.m., we had to drive about an hour to the trailhead parking lot.
Ooh, that's not much sleep.
And we have a ton of stuff. We're backpacking for approximately 3 days into the wilderness, and we have a lot of stuff on our back. We're all tired. We're semi-drunk. I am in some pain. I'm on medication, and I have a knee brace. This trip did include the 6 guys from San Diego, but it also included 2 people that at the time were staying near Denver. Ryan and Chris's brother, Brandon, and his partner, Nicole. Brandon and Nicole came from Denver. And so there's 8 of us on this trip. So we are driving an hour from Durango to the trailhead of the Chicago Basin. And we're having a good time.
And this is where Stephen says the 2 different factions began to form.
We are all driving from Durango. One car is Dickhead Ryan, Steve, who I went to high school with, myself, and Brant. And in the other car were the 3 brothers and one of the brothers' girlfriend. We already started to form alliances. We get to the basin, and the twin brothers, who purported to be experts in this space, in hiking and camping, and talked a big game about having mats and having enough water and getting enough sleep and having tents and how quickly they could put up tents. So there were 3 things they didn't tell us. 1, they did not tell us that there was going to be a 12-mile hike from the parking lot to the approach of the first peak. 2, there was a train we could have taken from that parking lot to that approach that would have taken it from a 12-hour hike to about an hour-and-a-half train ride. And the 3rd thing we found out as we were about 3 miles into the hike is that they forgot the goddamn maps.
The twin brothers and their other brother were rapidly losing favor with Stephen and his group of 4.
So 3 miles into this hike, and we're already kind of pissed at the brothers. There's a creek at the bottom of the place where all the trails diverge. We spent about 2 hours at the creek walking around because they thought maybe they had the maps. They're like, oh, maybe the map's over here, maybe the map's over there. They walked north on the creek, south on the creek. And I actually stopped walking after 20 minutes because I was in incredible pain. If I had a meter, I was at a 3 of 10, 4 of 10. Achy, but can limp through it. And they came back and we decided we were going to forge on without a map. And that the camp they got is only a few hours away. Just a few hours away.
So I suspect that cell phones weren't helpful?
We lost cell phone service pretty quickly into the drive from Durango. And then I think we had tried to download maps through Google Maps, but whenever 2000 this was, Google Maps wasn't quite as sophisticated as it is today.
And what time of year was this?
This was September, and so it wasn't quite cold, but it wasn't warm. So at this point, everyone's pretty pissed off. And if we were to, gauge my knee at a 3 or 4, I would say people's anger was at a 5 or 6. But don't worry, just a few-hour hike. I would say this was about noon, and we just forged on. We had a bit of lunch, and we followed the river. Luckily, at least we went the right way, and then at some point, we did see some trail markers says that we're on the way to the approach. We hiked some of the most hellacious terrain on the riverbed because of big boulder rocks. Usually in the summertime, there is a river, but it was a small creek at the time. And, bouldering, as you were doing, is incredibly cumbersome. Went from the bouldering, went into tree line. Tree line, we were there about 3-4 hours, and it started to get dark. When you're in the tree line, the sun might set at this time, maybe 7, but it gets dark at 5:30. So we are approximately 7 hours into our hike, and it is dark. And We're like, so you said this is a few hour hike to the base camp. And that's kind of when the anger went from a 5 and 6 to 7, maybe. And so we're continuing on, and I'm getting pissed, and we're all getting pissed. We're getting to that point where it's like 8 hours into this hike, and we're like, are we doing this? Like, what are we doing? Like, we need to get a good night's sleep, and it doesn't appear that we're anywhere close. And so we're going to be like, we don't have an idea where we are. It's pitch black. Can we just set up camp here? And we had those conversations every half hour for about 3 hours. The twin brothers keep saying, so close.
Do you think they were convinced, or do you think they were just bullshitting?
They're bullshitting. They don't want to admit. It's going to be 8, 9 o'clock. It's pitch black. And there was snow up there. Once you get up to a certain elevation, doesn't matter what time of the year, there is some element of snow, especially in the shoulder seasons where it's kind of hot in one part of the day and colder in the other, ice forms. And so we were starting to walk on ice ledges, and some of those ice ledges were not so stable. In fact, some of them were falling and slick. And we're walking over these ice ledges. I couldn't really see because it was pitch black. We did have headlamps. We could only see so much. I believe they were part of a waterfall system that led to the river that we walked up. Because it was pitch black, I couldn't understand how much exposure I really had. We didn't know if we were overlooking 20 feet of a drop, 1,000 feet of drop, or if it was dropping into a trench.
Exposure in mountain climbing refers to how dangerous a fall would be. In other words, how far you could fall and what's below you if you do. For example, a tall cliff with sharp rocks below means high exposure, while a grassy slope would mean low exposure.
We did have crampons. There was a big conversation on whether or not we should have crampons. Should we rent crampons? Do we need crampons? Half of us brought them, half didn't. Guess what part of the half didn't bring them? The brothers and girlfriend squad.
Crampons are basically metal spikes you strap to your boots for extra grip on ice and snow, like cleats for icy mountains.
And the girlfriend almost slipped down one of the goddamn waterfalls and had to crawl across the ice ledge in order to not to fall. Meanwhile, her boyfriend, Brandon, who I don't like, was just cussing at her. Like, she was the toughest and best hiker of the group and had the best attitude, and he's just berating her to crawl and shimmy across this ice wall. We were just dead. The pain was excruciating. I was literally crying. My friends were upset, trying to back me up. We're all friends, I guess. But yeah, and Dickhead Ryan, God bless him, come to the rescue.
Dickhead Ryan.
Dickhead Ryan, he's like, we're fucking stopping here. We've been doing this all day. You idiots didn't bring maps. Brandon's yelling at Nicole. We're crossing ice. We're in the fucking dark. We're starving. We haven't even had a proper meal. We're taking a break. And the twin brothers and the other brother were pretty mad because like we weren't quite where they needed to be. And it's like, well, it is 11 o'clock, approaching midnight, and it's time to take a rest.
What time was the actual climb supposed to start the following day?
At 4 a.m.
So you're 5 hours away from starting at that point.
Yeah, exactly. I think we were around 12,000 foot elevation, but the hardest parts are towards the end. That's when it becomes more rocky, more surfaces that you need to scramble up. We only had 2,000 feet-ish, but the hellacious parts are coming. And so the four of us were having peanut butter pretzels and whatever we can make in a jet boil.
Popular among campers, hikers, and backpackers, the Jetboil stove is known for its speed and efficiency. This is achieved through a unique set of metal fins which maximizes heat transfer. This technology, which allows the stove to boil water incredibly fast, was inspired by heat transfer systems used in NASA spacecraft.
And we need a couple of drinks because we need to also get to sleep. I smuggled some whiskey and a plastic bottle of pre-made margarita, the Jose Cuervo kind. Vic, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, the good stuff.
The good stuff. And we talked till about 2 a.m. And we're not confident in their ability to lead the path. And we're also not confident in our ability to climb the next day. And we said, are we doing this? Are we not doing this? And ultimately, we decided that we're not doing this. We decided that the person we could convince to tell the other group that we're going to de facto mutiny was Brant. Brant was the most likable of all of us, but also he was in a really volatile time with his girlfriend and he's pretty weak. And so we knew we could convince him into things. And so we told Brant that he is in charge of telling the group. He didn't want to do it. He was very reluctant. And then we went to bed for about an hour. Then about 4 a.m., they started rapping on our tent. Hey guys, gotta get up. Let's go. And that's when the mutiny started. They'd come back every 5 minutes. Guys, seriously, time to go. Guys, serious. I know you're in there. I can hear you. We're like, Brant, go tell him. We convinced him to go do it. He goes to talk to them. He said, listen, we're not feeling great about this. I don't think we're going to do it. Well, I don't care. This is what we came here to do. He was like, well, I think we're done. Went back in and they kept at it. They kept rapping. They kept trying to convince us, call us assholes, that we're going without you. And we just sat there. Could hear them packing. We silently mutinied. As soon as they left, fell asleep. We woke up around 9 a.m., refreshed. Feeling great, honestly. We packed up all of our gear. We left.
After an uneventful daylight hike back to their car,
Pagosa Springs is about a 2-hour drive away. My buddy Steve had been there before. Beautiful mountain town along, for the name of the river. Beautiful hot spring. Dozens of them ranging in temperature from 99 to 108 degrees. The lobster pot. They had delicious beer there. We had the best, cheesiest, messiest lunch ever. We drank a bunch, so we got really drunk and had a great time.
Whatever happened to the people that kept on with the hike?
So we did talk for maybe 2 weeks. I know that they hiked 2 peaks. We had a really ambitious goal to hike 4 peaks. They only got to 2 because they couldn't do it. I think that first day really killed our productivity and unfortunately led us towards this path.
so did you end up meeting up again to fly home?
No, we all flew separately. It was clear that there was 2 distinct packs. It was kind of great that we had the packs because it was kind of a shitty experience. We weren't prepared in a lot of ways. Our eyes were full of adventure and brains lacked a lot of planning. My knee lacked a lot of ligaments. It was just a dumb opportunity.
I think that we've all learned a valuable lesson here, and it's to not let your friends convince you to go hiking ever. What do you think that the third brother's nasty nickname for you is? Margarita Steven?
To this day, the third brother hates my guts, but he's a prick, so who cares?
If you were forced to eat any of your traveling companions, which one and why?
Now or then?
Then,
So Ryan and Chris are slight. They have good legs, play soccer, but they're little, right? So they're probably the tastiest. Like a Cornish hen, they're so tasty because the taste is so concentrated. And so I think one of the twins, and if I had to choose between one or the other, one of them had straight hair, one had curly hair. And maybe I'd do the straight hair one because the curly hair was so nice.
understandable. Good reasoning.
I would have chosen you since you were Brandon Jose Cuervo margarita drink.
You'd probably also get some residual effect from the painkiller she was taking. Have you ever gone mountain climbing again? Anything even resembling what you were attempting to do?
That was probably the most intense, but I've hiked 5 other 14ers since then.
As someone who has no idea about this activity, I'm surprised when you keep on using the term hiking when you're climbing a mountain.
Dude, I was just about to say that. Like, at what point when you're like walking on frozen glaciers, does it like you're doing something a little crazier than hiking?
And again, I'm not the most expert, or maybe I was more expert a few years ago, but there are different levels of travailing a mountain. You could hike, which is primarily walking.
Is travail the French version of travel?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
That being said, so you can walk, big step walk. You could boulder or scramble, which means you're kind of like not walking, but just sort of climbing over things. And then you could climb, right? And climbing involves equipment, involves some skill, involves training.
Ah, gotcha. Okay. By calling it anything besides hiking, you'd be overstating what you did to those in the know.
I feel like using the word backpacking though makes it sound more like gnarly, and you have backpacks on, so like you can for sure call it that, right?
Yeah, so backpacking connotes like you are going to stay someplace overnight, right? And not all the time are you hiking.
You're not always hiking if you're backpacking. How do you get to the place where you're taking your backpack off? If you packed margaritas, you are backpacking.
You don't want to get him in trouble with his mountain knowledgeable peers.
They're going to be all pissed at Margarita Steven.
But I know you had the margaritas and the whiskey, but did you bring any gorp?
We all had different types of gorp for sure. Yeah.
What was in yours?
Yeah, I don't like chocolate, so there was no chocolate in it. And every other like pre-made gorp had. By the way, I don't understand that gorp has chocolate in it.
You want more raisins and less chocolate. You're a psycho. But you would choose an oatmeal raisin cookie over a chocolate chip cookie.
Is it hot or cold?
What?
Hot chocolate chip cookie? Well, you can't beat that.
It has chocolate in it, though. I thought you didn't like chocolate.
I like melted chocolate.
Oh, melted chocolate.
Yeah,
Okay.
he doesn't like that. I'm not an animal.
As night descended, did you hear any tree knocks or whooping sounds?
I don't remember if there were animals or creatures or yetis following us.
Mm-hmm.
We were so annoyed and so like independently focused on our flight that, we could have been hunted by, manhunters or serial killers. And I think we were mostly just like so into our own selves that we didn't know anything.
In my deep research in this topic, they say that there are some famous mountain goats in that area. Did you run across any mountain goats? And tell us more.
I wish I could tell you we saw any. I don't remember seeing any wildlife, honestly.
Really?
Yeah. I don't remember that being a feature of the trip at all.
Huh.
It's possible we were approaching the fall. Maybe they migrated.
Oh, yeah, that's possible. Or maybe you just didn't get to the high enough elevations.
Something, yeah.
High on a hill there's a lonely goat. That's a good hiking song.
What fictional character would you have liked to have with you on that trip?
One of my favorite books is from John Scalzi, Old Man's War. Basically, the premise is this. When you become old and futile as a human being,
I can relate.
as your body starts to fail and right before your mind starts to fail,
Uh-huh. I'm with you.
you're given an opportunity to upload your mind and consciousness to a new being. And so you might start off as like a regular, quote unquote, terrestrial humanoid, but your consciousness is uploaded into a enhanced, I think 8-foot or 12-foot war machine. So yeah, I would have loved to get a new knee in that situation.
Maybe on your next trip, you could upload your consciousness into an 8-foot tall war machine, and then you'd have no problem. You could have joined the group that actually went to do the summiting. Mutiny averted. And that's going to bring Steven's story to an end. Remember that you can visit YMIS Podcast on Instagram for pics related to Steven's story and any episode. Your Most Interesting Story is available on all podcast platforms, including YouTube. If you'd like to support the show, you can like, rate, review, share, and or subscribe wherever you're listening to this program, or you could buy us a coffee. If you want to tell us your most interesting story, follow the link to our website in our show description. Until next time, be interesting.
When you were saying that you were hot dogging during a soccer game, I thought it meant something different. I thought it meant that you were pooing your pants.
And did you inject any of those special fetus cells into your knee to try to make it heal faster?
I wish I did that.
I'm hot dogging here, you guys.